turn all those negative people, all those negative places you've been to, and all these things that you've acquired in your life that aren't making you a better person. Do something with it. Turn those negatives into positives. It works. You just have to be brave enough to do it. And you want to talk about resilience. It's been about maybe 5 days since I last recorded the previous section, part 2 of this discussion, and my voice is back to normal. I had the flu. I was really in bad shape, really wanted to continue going on the way I was to just prove to anybody who feels like excuses can hold you back from doing things. That was one of my fundamental things, is don't let anything hold you back. But for the purposes of you being able to hear me clearly without me coughing and sniffling, I thought it was a good chance to take a break and continue here. And I'm glad I went through that, because it gave me a chance to sit back and reflect on things that I had been pondering anyway. Normal thoughts that go through all of our minds every single day. And when you're thinking about things over and over and over and over again, what they call playing stories in your mind, when those things are happening to you in the moment, you tend to let things stack and you'll let things build. And you, even though you're reflecting on things, you don't take the time to stand back and appreciate things. Like right now, I'm outside. It's a beautiful morning. I often like to do these podcasts when I'm outside because it gives me a clear perspective on what I'm talking about and how I'm feeling, without any filter, without any distraction other than the animals and the sounds that you hear outdoors, which I think for the purposes of these podcasts is sometimes good to hear the ambient noise around us, hear the birds chirping, hear the planes going by, hear the wind, the car doors, things that are in life, because we are talking about life here. And it's real easy to get boxed into a cubicle, as we all do in society. Even if you don't work every single day in a cubicle, you may often feel like you're in a cubicle, like you're locked up. I often say the worst thing that can happen to any individual is that you get locked up mentally, because that's like being in prison. A prison for your mind is being locked up. When you're not able to see things clearly and you're not turning those negatives into positives and you're letting things snowball and stack up on you, then ultimately, what are you? Your mind is in prison. Freedom is everything. And that's really the topic. The point of emphasis on this part is about freedom. And freedom of your mind, and how important that is. I love to self-reflect, but I often like to not only reflect on the positive things. You have to focus on those negative things to turn them into positives, which is what we talked about in part 2. But I would also caution that just because you're focusing on negatives doesn't mean they should consume you. That's not what that means. Focusing on negative things doesn't mean you should incorporate negative energy just to get a positive outcome. Focusing on the negative is a perspective thing, to free your mind from that negative energy so it doesn't consume you. Being aware of something is a huge, huge asset, a huge skill for any individual. Whenever you're aware of something, it's much harder for that, whatever you're aware of, that person, that place, that thing, that situation, that outcome, that failure, that success. Whenever you're aware of something, you can properly identify it, put it in its proper category, and then now you can reflect on it individually or put it amongst the collective. You can now, if you meditate, if you often just, kind of think a lot before you take a nap or before you go to sleep, or if you take a time of day to kind of pray, you can think about those things because you're aware of them. The scary thing in life, what can often wrap your mind up in bars and imprison your mind, is when you're not aware of things that you should be aware of. Things that are right in your face that are causing you all types of anxiety, all types of depression and fear. Things that are dragging you down. They're right in your face and you can't see them. Those are the things that make me super aware of the fact that I need to be aware. It's one of the things that it's almost like a defense mechanism. If you ever seen, me and my son were watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and all the different Spider-Mans, if you've seen that movie, I won't spoil it, but all the different Spider-Men and women from the other universes, the multiverse, they all have their own unique set of skills, even though they're all essentially Spider-Man in their universe. But they all have their own adaptive set of skills that they use to to better infiltrate the negative things, which would be the villains, to better infiltrate these people. So if what works for me won't necessarily work for you in your world. And is that type of deal where you have a built-in defense mechanism. Everybody has it. And I think most people are aware of how they deal with certain situations that pop up in their life. That's your defense mechanism. Defense mechanisms are just built-in things that no matter what you do, that's kind of how you're going to respond. The difference is, are you aware of how you respond? And if so, are there things you can do to actually make that negative reaction, if it's negative for you, that negative response to things that happen around you, and turn it into a positive where now you are able to use it as an infiltration device to, instead of being on the defensive, you go on the attack and attack your problems instead of waiting for the problems to come towards you, if you can help it. And that's kind of how I see being aware of your awareness. It's almost like a spider sense. It's something that you develop over time. You're aware of what things make you jumpy, what gives you paranoia, what every single day of your life is giving you anxiety, what's causing your depression, what is causing your fear, what things are you afraid of, what situations that if they happen to you, you know you're going to have a complete mental and physical breakdown. What are the most scariest things in your life that could happen? The most scariest people, the most scariest places, anything that causes you any type of worry, depression, fear, anxiety, paranoia, doubt, all of those things, you have, quote unquote, a spider sense to it. You have a flight or fight system built inside of yourself that you have been essentially cultivating since you were born. And it is a skill to get out of it. Now, I am not a doctor, so I can't mentally say this is how you should do it. All I'm talking about here is being aware of it. It is up to each individual to figure out these things, and then you go out into the world and figure out what's the best way to deal with these things. That's not the answers we're getting here. We're posing a question here. What are those things for you? And have you done anything to overcome those things? What is your defense mechanism when things pop up? And that is the point of emphasis for this particular part. It's freeing your mind of that. If you're aware that your mind may feel a little imprisoned, you feel like your mind is in a cubicle at work, that you're just always working in a box mentally, no windows, no doors. You don't even have bars. You just have walls up. How do you get out of that situation? How do you get out of a cubicle with no walls, just a floor, ceiling, 4 walls? How do you get out of that box mentally? There has to be a way, because you got in there. So if you got in, there has to be a way to get out. Now, how do you do that? Well, you have to start thinking, don't you? You have to start assessing the situation. You have to be aware of your situation. You have to be aware that you're in a box, and you have to start diving back into yourself and figuring out, how did you get into it in the first place? So start going there in your mind. How did you get in the box? How long did it take you to get there? Are there steps that you're forgetting to get you in that box that would be very essential and therapeutic in a way, clues, so to speak, to get you out of it? Did you need help getting into the box, or did you put yourself in there? Was it a situation that happened overnight? Was it a situation that had been building where you just basically walked for like 3 years straight into a box and then it closed you? What's your plan? You can't live in there forever. And you certainly don't want to die in there, because now that box becomes a coffin. You've already buried yourself. So how are you going to get out of this situation? Well, it's simple. When you think about it, you just have to start thinking. You start thinking about how you got in there. You start thinking about who was with you when you got in there. Look around you, in your mind, in your memory. Who was there? What are the faces? What are the names? What are the places? What are the people? What are the things in your life that were present right when you got into that box? The last thing you remember before you got into that box, before you locked your mind up and put it essentially in jail. All of those things is what you're going to reverse engineer in your brain to get yourself out. Mentally, you might not be able to get out of the mind. Your mind's in there. Your mind is in there. So if you're in your own head and you're thinking, I'm enclosed and I can't get out of this situation, then what else do you have? What is your mind connected to? The mind is a mental thing. It's connected to your body, which is a physical thing. It's connected to your soul, which is a spiritual thing. It's connected to your heart, which is an emotional thing. Your mind, if you're enclosed in that cubicle or you're enclosed in that box, you're disconnected from the rest of your body. You're missing the essential tools that it is to be a human being. You're missing out on the essential tools that will create a positive life for yourself. Your mind being trapped and being unfree is the last thing you need in your life. You have to reconnect your mind to your body, your soul, and your heart. How are you going to get out of that box? Well, you're going to stand up. You're going to trust yourself that you can get out of the box. You need determination, will, and purpose to do that. And you have to recognize that you are a unique, valuable human being. And that your presence in that box and being detached from the rest of the world is not good for the rest of the world. That you have something to offer. Which means you need to get out of that damn box right now. Right now. You can't afford to sit down there any longer. You can't scream. No one can hear you because you've been in that box so long that it's essentially a coffin. You're going to have to dig your way out of there. Punch through the damn walls. Scratch, claw, kick, knee, headbutt, do whatever you got to do to get through those walls. They're not as thick as you think. And once you're out, if you are buried, you don't see sunlight, then start crawling, start digging. Use your fingernails. Bleed, cry, scream, yell, thrash. Do whatever it is that makes you feel like you have to get out of that hole. Yes, you're going to be dirty and tired and exhausted mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. But when you get out of there and that sun comes up and you look back down in that hole and you see that empty box that you once was entrapping your mind and your entire body, your heart, and your soul in, you're going to look down and say, wow, wasn't that worth it? Now I feel like I have something I can do. I don't ever want to see that box again. You don't need a shovel. Take your hands, get on your knees, and cover that box up with all that dirt you climbed out of. Bury that box, bury that deep, dark hole of a place in your mind, in your heart, in your body, in your soul. You stand up and you start looking for the path. That path we've been talking about. That journey, it's ready. You're ready to go now. And you start walking. Who cares where you're going at this point? Just start walking. You've already overcome something. You're aware that you have a purpose now. You didn't climb out of that hole for no reason. You didn't. You have purpose. You know you're valuable. Your road to self-recovery and self-love has already started the moment you made the decision to start beating on that wall. You don't need anybody else to get you out of that hole. Your mind is free now. What are you going to do with all that free time in your mind now? You're going to walk right back into another box? Descend back down into the earth in the darkness? Or are you going to be aware that that's a outcome you just got out of and it can easily happen again if you don't make the right choices? Regardless if the choices are hard or easy, no matter who comes into your life, no matter what wealth you acquire, no matter how sick you get, what are you going to do mentally? What's your spider sense? How are you going to deal with the situations when they pop up? What's your flight or flight tendency? Are you capable of changing those patterns? Are you capable of changing your routine? How strong are you? You've already answered a lot of those questions if you were able to dig yourself out of that hole. Now you're walking free. You've already won a huge piece of the battle that needs to be fought. But a battle is only the start of a war. The decisions you make from that point forward are the most crucial ones you will ever make. Because you can either waste that opportunity and forever think, I did all that hard work for nothing, or you can take that opportunity and keep moving forward and say, I'm going to make it. No more saying I can't. No more giving up. Whatever's scaring me, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to figure out ways to overcome that fear. Whatever's causing me paranoia, I'm going to figure that out. Whatever's causing me anxiety, I'm going to figure that out by any means necessary. There are no more excuses. Your heart knows you're not going anywhere. Your soul knows you have purpose. Your body is physically stronger because you've already done a very incredible physical feat, and your mind is free now. There are no more excuses. This isn't a second chance. This is your life. You don't take chances with your life. You're not a cat. You don't get 9 lives. You get out of life what you put into it. So you can either keep walking and make the most of it and figure things out each step at a time, or you can regress right back into that hole. Literally turn around, dig up all that dirt you successfully put over that hole, and you can jump right back into your coffin of your mind, of your heart, and your body. Your soul is not going to like that because it was free. Being aware is so important. Your mind is so important. How you view things, your approach, your mentality to things is so important. I cannot state that enough. Thinking about things is not enough. You have to do. Once your mind gets to a point where you need to make a decision, that hard decision, that's the right one because it's difficult. Life-changing decisions aren't easy. They never are. If you're looking for the easy way out, go jump back into your box. But if you want to feel good in this world, you want life to say, hey, let's take it all in. Let's do it. Keep walking. Take in every inch of it. Take in every single breath of air as if it's your last. And be proud of who you are. Self-love is everything. If no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. That concludes this 3-part series. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.